I've always been fascinated with how ideas evolve and mutate in us and in the creative process. And these projects are about that. I don't think our inspirations ever have an immaculate conception. We have to draw on the past, but the past can be the enemy of the new. As I see it, new ideas emerge through a process of inner struggle that in a way tears apart the past and then builds on what refuses to die. In this respect, my work is self-referential. It is often about the process that brings it into being. And by collaging fragments of existing images, I have suggested these references. And in the projects that precede, well, cut there. So because of this interest in how ideas evolve, and the ideas of inspiration and intention, and then later my fascination with the Dionysian myth as a parable for the creative process, it has become, all of these things have become a unifying theme in my work for decades. For me, this story serves as a parable about the creative expression. For the artist who has created her own world of forms and ideas, tearing apart the past may mean sacrificing her own progeny. The Greeks associated the grapevine with the Dionysian because cutting back the vine to almost nothing at the end of the harvest season is what makes possible a bountiful harvest in the next season. Hi, I'm Sandy Winters, and my NYFA fiscal sponsorship grant is called Metamorphosis, a traveling exhibition. In this particular project for the New York Foundation for the Arts, I'm proposing a traveling exhibition of 2 ongoing installations that have already traveled. The first one, called Metamorphosis 1, traveled to 2 universities, St. Olaf College and Indiana State University. And the second, called Pretexts and Subtext, traveled to 5 different museums. Because each piece in each series builds on what I've done before, it became increasingly important that these works be included with the traveling installations as a supplementary survey exhibition. Each of these installations originated from images in my earlier accordion books or fragments of my previous block prints. Installations. I start out with an abstract form or a pre-existing form. For example, I use collaged pieces of rectilinear square paper. Those are collaged in a very abstract, grid-like form. Then in those abstract forms, I study it as if it's a Rorschach test until I see an organic form occur that's either pushing against the sides of the rectangular form or being housed by the rectangular form or spilling out over it. I sometimes articulate those organic forms in a very dense, thick, heavy way with a lot of paint or a lot of drawing. And then there are aspects of it where I have floating figures that are just the linear aspect of the figure. For me, I see the linear as the fleeting, something that was once there no longer is there. It's a ghost of a pre-existing form because it's just the outline. I see the concrete, heavy articulation of a form to suggest reality, to suggest the concrete world. So in my pieces, there's this sense of coming and going, what was there before, what is now there in a more concrete fashion, and it's also this dialogue between abstraction and representation. Now, because I put down the abstract form first, then I find the images. There is no preconception of what the image is going to actually look at. It's through this process of finding it, sometimes losing it, finding it, that I begin to see the image form. Now the forms begin to start out with, for example, my pre-existing form is a block print. I print it arbitrarily on a piece of paper, which you'll see in some of the drawings. And then I draw out from that. Then sometimes I laminate that drawing to a scroll, and then I draw out from that. And then I continue to go around the room. And I'm now doing this in the larger installations that have been traveling. And then I decided that it's really important for the viewer to see this. Why should the viewer see this like end product? And I often felt, I spoke to my students about the idea that when you're in the studio, the most thrilling part is sort of seeing something occur and starting to follow it, and then kind of losing it, and then seeing it come again. And the best analogy for me is, it must be like trying to catch a butterfly. So I think the creative process is a little bit like this. You see the butterfly, you chase after it, you swing the net, you miss it, it runs over to another point, you swing the net, and then you're so excited, and then finally you catch it. And you pin it on the wall, and it fades. So in the process of making my art, I feel like I have this exciting, thrill of seeing an image, maybe losing it, seeing it again, then resolving it. Then it goes on the wall in the gallery, and it no longer feels like mine. So that's why at this point, it's important for me to show the viewer the whole process. Why can't they be standing there and thinking to themselves, well, maybe she's going to go up over the wall, or she's going to go down onto the floor. Or maybe they can actually participate. Maybe a museum staff member could take one of the panels and put it on the other wall, so they could participate as the sacrificer, and then I have to have the rebirth, get the painting around to the other wall. So this metaphor has been revolving through all of my work, but now it's very important in this installation. So my proposal to the museums has been, this piece has already traveled to 6 small museums. I originally proposed that I would go there, they could take a pen, we could put it up, they could take a panel off the wall and put it on another wall, and then I could stay there and I could reinvent the piece. But of course, that's very time consuming. So some venues have preferred that I take their floor plan and take photographs of their walls and compose the panels to fit their space. So by making it site specific, it's requiring me to deconstruct it from the earlier venues and make it a new piece for their venue. And then they invite me out, and I come install it, and I can actually draw and continue the piece on their walls. So the deconstructive aspect in the earlier 6 venues has been the idea of taking the piece and having to reconstruct it for a new venue, and then only do a little changing when I'm there. But when I go there, I also offer workshops or lectures that can involve students, and also I have the second installation that will be traveling, which is called Metamorphosis. I actually stand there and draw, which you may see. We may be able to show you some videos of me actually drawing, either in this text or in the other text. So the project is very Dionysian, and it's very participatory in that I want the viewer or the museum's community to participate, even if it's just passively as a voyeur, so they can see the losing and finding it. This is very liberating for me, because I don't feel that it's difficult to, if my audience knows that they're going to see me have a bad day, then I don't have to worry about whether or not it looks good today, because the process is about losing it and finding it. It's about that sacrifice. So in this particular installation, it will travel across the country, and different museums will participate in different ways. In the past, I've taken an earlier block print that is part of the installation. I've cut it apart, which is my deconstructing or my sacrificing. I've collaged it in accordion books in different manners, and then started a new drawing. So that's very similar, but on a smaller scale, to what I do in the big installations. So I'm always constantly cutting apart a pre-existing piece of my own, which is a metaphor for the artist's life. I don't think this is new, that out of an artist is always looking back at an earlier piece and trying to, do the next piece, or it's informing the next piece. I also think that this Dionysian sacrifice is also how I perceive 20th, 21st century art, that we have had one movement or one ism after another, annihilating the one before or dismissing the one before in order to be creative. And I think that's what keeps this whole sense of creativity going. So I will talk in the text about the budget. There is an established budget for this project for anyone that's interested, because I've done this before and have receipts for everything. So the budget will list all the different aspects in which it needs funding. Funding will also allow smaller museums, as it's traveling, to be able to take this installation and in their venues when they might not have otherwise been able to afford it. So, and then there will be a video documentation. And in this video documentation, each university, each museum will add on to the one before it. So it will be a collaborative video that goes through the whole process. So you'll see how it changes. And it's my hope that someday this video will be put into a participatory video where a viewer could actually choose to go to one venue or the other, and they could actually direct the process of the piece through their own choices through the video. So this video and this documentation will continue throughout the process and has been going now for a long time. I also have offered to do participatory pieces with the dance group, with the dance department, with a music group, and I've done that at St. Olaf College. And I really like that because I'm inspired by music, I'm inspired by writing, I'm inspired by dance. So I would like to see a group inspired by my mark or my work. Then I hear what they do and I can be re-inspired by their mark. And then this adds on to seminars that I actually have done at some of the institutions about the idea of inspiration and the idea of how you start with an inspiration and you get an instant intention, and then something goes wrong and something else appears and you're inspired by something different right in the middle of the piece. So then your intention starts to change a little bit. And I think this is the process that's helped me find my voice, and hopefully when people are participating with the piece at the museum, it will help them find their own voice, either as a voyeur or as an artist themselves. So these are a lot of my plans, and let's talk later about how they can be modified with each institution.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and please feel free to read the text and look at the other videos that are on the text, and also look at some of the educational processes that I've used in the different institutions. And you can contact me if you are interested in the project or interested in sponsoring part of the project. Thank you.